Hey, Caleb, welcome in. Good to have you in, Caleb.
Yep, nice to be here. Nice to be here. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Another edition of Road to the Blue Map presented by the Henry House. In 1893, the Henry House, nationally registered historic Victorian home, was born from one of Alabama's wealthiest families. After a top-to-bottom facelift by Little Pink House's construction, this is the go-to luxury spot behind the city harbor and on Lake Guntersville. Perfect for a staycation, weekend getaway, and a Mokes of North Alabama moke ride around beautiful Lake Guntersville. We offer whole property rental for weddings or your special events. We also rent our 5 beautiful in-suites by the night individually for those romantic occasions. Make sure to check out the Henry House right here, located in Guntersville. It is a great spot, great house. Like it says, I mean, you got 5 different rooms that you can stay in. They're all designed after different, places in the whole entire country. So it's a cool place. Guntersville is a great place to come vacation. We've talked about Rojo Go, Little Pink House's construction, which constructed, like it said right there, the Henry House that's out there. And so we appreciate all those people and their sponsorships, and Wenzel's Oyster House in Guntersville as well for hosting us each and every week for Road to the Blue Map.
The Henry House is right across the street from the city harbor.
Yeah,
and
a bunch of restaurants over
right
there.
Right behind it is the main street in Guntersville, so you can pretty much walk anywhere in Guntersville, but then you can rent one of those mokes and take it anywhere, all the way over to the Supreme Court and other places. And if you haven't seen those, it's a vehicle that was featured in the James Bond movie. You can easily look them up if you look up the Henry House on Facebook and see what we're talking about with those. Those are awesome. But let's kick this thing off because we got a lot to talk about, and we're going to go through it pretty quickly tonight because it's playoff time basically.
Nice.
I mean, it's down to the wire as far as playoffs, but I'm going to let you.
A lot of different region championships that we'll be talking about and stuff as well. Before we get started, just want to give a shout out to the Coosa Valley Academy Rebels volleyball team. I was there earlier today. For those that don't know, I coach baseball at Coosa Valley Academy in Harpersville, and the volleyball team won the state championship today.
That's awesome.
Big day for them. They had made it last year, got up 2-0, and then lost the last 3 games. This year they get down 2-0, and win the last 3 games to win it. So great win for them, and very proud of them. And so I told them I'd give them a shout out tonight on the show, and so there you go. You got your shout out, state champs. Getting things started here, Victory Christian at Winterboro. This will be Thursday night this week. Huge game for both these teams. With playoff implications, Victory Christian and Winterboro both need a win in order to get into the playoffs and get to 500 in the region as well. Winterboro is favored by 8 as the home team in this game. Should be a really, really interesting ball game, Bo, between Victory Christian and Winterboro. And, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, the winner gets a chance to go play in the postseason. The loser is going to be sitting at home. And so, huge game, and I'm sure that one of them that, there's going to be some nerves in that ball game on Thursday night. But it's going to be a lot of fun to see which one can come out on top and which one can go get in the postseason.
Yeah, two great leaders, too. Skylar Mansfield's a great head coach. Been at Winterboro for a while now, and then Terry Etheridge, the brother of Keith Etheridge, is the head coach of Victory. So you said it. I mean, this is a loser leave town match. This is Tommy Wildfire Rich versus mystery wrestler number 1 back in 1981 in NWA wrestling. But this is one of those games, man, where the playoffs begin now. Similar to the situation that Coosa Christian's in, the playoffs began a couple of weeks ago with them. Similar situation here. A lot of people was like, hey, the playoffs are right around the corner. No, the playoffs are here for some teams, and this is one of those scenarios. So whoever wins this game is going to march on to the playoffs. The other one's going to go to the house. Winterboro is an 8-point favorite in this game. I know Coach Etheridge probably has that plastered in their locker room that they're an underdog to Winterboro, but should be a really good game, and that one is Thursday night.
Carver Birmingham at Ramsey on Thursday. Look, the line for this is Ramsey minus 46. Biggest thing for Ramsey is you just got to keep playing well. Stay healthy, keep playing well. For Carver Birmingham, they had a good start to the year and really kind of hadn't played as well during region play as they would have liked to. And a loss here would put them at 1-6 the rest of the year. A win here put Ramsey at 7-0 in the region. They're 7-2 overall right now. Their 2 losses on the year, 2 pretty good teams,
Parker
and Auburn. Yeah. So They've challenged themselves, and I think it's going to pay off for them big time when the playoffs come. And I think everybody's got, just a little worried about Ramsey. We just had Coach Osmond in here with AHSAA, and he brought them up. He said, look, we know that that's a team everybody's got to look out for in 5A this year.
Yeah, defending champs, and Coach Jackson does an unbelievable job with them. And until somebody beats them on their level, because you talk about Parker 6A and Auburn 7A, so you're talking about until somebody beats them in 5A, you still got to think they're one of the defending champions.
Yeah. And they dominated the best 5A team they played in Pleasant Grove this year, who beat Parker. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. And for Ramsey, you say defending champs. Sometimes you say that about teams, and they don't have a lot of guys that are back. This Ramsey team has a lot of guys that are back from that group from last year. So not only are they the defending champs, but they're very experienced as well. Oak Grove at Dora. This will be your AHSAA TV game of the week. So if you have WOTM, if you have NFHS Network, if you have a Roku stick, an Apple TV device, Fire Stick, any of that type of stuff, you can download WOTM, the app, watch it on there. So you can find a way to watch the game on Thursday night. Should be a very interesting game. If Oak Grove can beat Dora, they'll jump into the 2 seed and be able to host, which is crazy to think about. And then if they lose to Dora, they would end up being the 4 seed. Dora's the 2 seed. So Dora's playing to host a playoff game on Thursday night. Oak Grove is playing to host a playoff game. It's a 2. It's not a 2 or 3 seed, because if Oak Grove loses, they would actually be the 4 seed in their region. But it's a play to host, and big time football game, big time region game. I'm very interested to see Dora. I've heard a lot of people say a lot of good things about them. Chavis Williams is their head coach, and that name sounds familiar. He played at Alabama from about 2009 to about 2012 range, 2013, played outside linebacker, was a solid player, got a lot of playing time, and now has done a very good job. He's first stop at Carbon Hill and got them playing very good. Now he's back home where he went at Dora. So really interested to see their group, but interested to see Oak Grove as well. They beat Cordova this past week, and have had a really good season overall. Their only losses really this year about the same as Dora. Corner is really good, and Corner beat Dora and beat Oak Grove, and then also you look at it in Haleyville as well, very, very good. So very interested to see how this game goes on Thursday night, and for Dora, I think would be a huge win for them, and they're going to be a team to watch out for in 4A as we get going here in the playoffs.
Next game is going to start our Friday night games, and this one's a big one right here. This is Raglan, who's 6-3, 4-1 in region play, is traveling over to the Garden at Spring Garden, who's 7-2, 4-1 in region play. Raglan is actually favored in this game, 6 points. Let me tell you the scenario on this game right here. It's very simple. The winner of this game is going to, in all intents and purposes, if Coosa beats Woodville, will be hosting Coosa Christian. The loser is going to travel to Valley Head. That's the way the region crosses will be in the first round. So interesting game from that standpoint. Now Raglan on the season has been playing very good. Brick and I seen them playing a game at Pleasant Valley, which was supposed to be on paper a very close game. They ended up winning that game 39-6. And I was shocked when I seen the score when I got home, but I was also equally shocked when I seen the players that Raglan had, because they were rolling some dudes out there in pregame warm-ups, and I was like, man, where'd these cats come from? But Spring Garden, and I talked about this on the Matt and Todd show the other day, they're one of those blue bloods of 1A North who's been to 2 out of the last 3 semifinals and made it to the second round last year. So they're used to playoff football. There's no price tag you can put on experience when it gets to this time of the year, Caleb. You know that. I don't have to tell you. You played under Danny Horn, who's king of postseason. So when you got that kind of experience, it plays into these games and these scenarios like this. And when these playoffs start, the kids from Spring Garden's got a lot of heart, and they're going to be a tough out. And I think it starts this Friday night. More motivation for Coach Ragsdale to see that they're a 6-point underdog to Raglan. More motivation for them in their locker room, and they're at home. They're a very tough team to beat at home. So I look for that game to be a 4-quarter game, and a very good one at that. Our next game is going to be Appalachian, who is traveling to Cedar Bluff. Now, interesting stat on this one. Caleb, check this out. Appalachian is 4-4, 2-3 overall. Cedar Bluff is 3-5, 1-4 in region play. The line on this game is a pick 'em. But if you look at the all-time record, Appalachian has not fared very well against the Cedar Bluff Tigers. They're only 3-15 all-time versus Cedar Bluff. So that's something that may be in the back of their heads. I know some of these kids might not have been born during some of those scenarios, but at the end of the day, that stat's out there for a reason. You know, Cedar Bluff wins this thing, it's going to kick a three-way tie. So Cedar Bluff is in a scenario where they have to win, kick it to a three-way tie, and then, you know, we'll have to go through the tiebreakers at that point. So Cedar Bluff is in a must-win situation. Now, Appalachian, you know, they started out pretty good, and it's kind of tailed off lately. They have lost some games pretty bad down the stretch here. You know,
Competition has a little bit to do with that.
competition definitely has something to do with that. They lost 22-7 to Decatur Heritage, 37-8 to Valley Head, and then 51-0 last week to Coosa Christian. But they've also had some injuries down the stretch, and I know their quarterback being one. So that's definitely hurt them. And look, a lot of people sleeping on Cedar Bluff. Coach Crane does a really good job with them. They graduated a lot of kids. He took over a team. This is his first year as head coach, although he's not new to the program. He's new as the head coach. And a lot of people sleeping on him just because of the game with Coosa. But this is still a pretty good football team, man. I mean, they beat Spring Garden. Let me just start right there. That was a huge win for Coach Crane. I mean, they beat Spring Garden earlier this year. So if you don't think they got a good football team, you're kidding yourself. And they're going to need to put it together in this game. The computer has it to pick them, so I look at another four-quarter game in that one. Next game is going to be Coosa Christian is traveling to Woodville. You know, Coosa now is sitting 3-5, 2-3 in region play, and Woodville is sitting 5-3, 2-3 in region play. Big point spread on this one. Coosa. Here a couple of stats for Coosa that we've discovered over this last week when we got to digging into numbers. Coosa Christian, Caleb, has not given up a single point all season in region play on defense. They've given up one kick return to Cedar Bluff. Outside of that, they've not given up defensively a single point all season in region play. Another funny stat, they also have created more turnovers than they have given up total points on the season. I think they've given up 32 points all season, and they've created 35 or 36 turnovers.
Wow.
So that's a recipe for success. Now, this is a huge line on this game, but you know, Woodville is going to play with their hair on fire to beat these guys. This is going to be a tough sledding for those guys. But at the end of the day, you know, Coosa's, we talked about playoff pictures beginning. Theirs began a couple of weeks ago. So Coosa either wins or they're out of the playoffs, period.
No, they've been playing with their backs against the wall for a while now. Before we get to a couple other games, want to get to a few comments. Corey Ramsey said, what region will Anniston play in the playoffs? Do you know? Have you and Coach Jackson talked about that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
He won't talk about nothing but who they play that week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't know who they.
And I didn't get to go see him today, so I'm gonna have to do a phone interview later this week. I will find out all of that.
Yeah, so we'll try to find that out for you. Jeremy Sky said, "Go Southside Panthers." Looking forward to big game
Scottsboro
with
region
Moody.
crosses with Southside's region.
Yeah, and that was another comment. Was who Scottsboro? We just got done talking with Coach Osment and Arab, so they cross Scottsboro and them cross with Moody, Leeds, Southside, that region. So two regions that could have two ties at the top. How crazy is that? I mean, two regions who the top three teams in both of them could all tie for first place.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so two very, very competitive regions that'll be matching up there in the first round. 5A North, super competitive.
Tough,
I mean,
very
you
tough.
look at those two regions and then that Ramsey, Pleasant Grove, John Carroll region as well. That's 3 out of the 4 regions where at the very top, they have 3 teams who all have a chance to go make a run and go do something.
Yeah.
So, as you know, we've bragged about 4A South. 5A North is right there on
agree.
the same level, I think, with 4A
100%.
South. So, a couple other comments on here. Ryan McElwain, big game in Leroy for 1A, for Region 1 championship and 1A. Leroy and Milry, rematch of last year's 1A South semi. So that is a big game. We don't have that on the docket here, Ryan, but did want to mention that game since you brought it up. It is a huge game, and Milry's actually an 11-point favorite in that game over Leroy as well. Michael Lotta said, good evening, Bo and Caleb. Go Bucks, go Redskins, go Saints, and go Susan Moore Bulldogs. So, and then Matt, no, we're the line, you can't bet on high school football, but AHS, FHS, which is a great site. It pretty much has every team's history all the way back to when they started playing football, all that. They compute lines and put them out, and so we just have decided to put them a part of our stuff to kind of let people know what the computers and what the numbers say about each game. But as we know, each and every week, it doesn't matter at all because we see, I mean, you watch enough college football and there's plenty of upsets.
It's weird. You see some upsets, but you also see that thing get it pretty close sometimes.
No, yeah. You know, but I mean, you watch enough NFL. I mean, we had, San Francisco's now lost 2 weeks in a row, and who would have thought that? They were favorites in both games, and Eagles lost.
Eagles
last
got murdered.
week. Yeah,
38-7 by the Ravens, right?
Yeah. So
what do you think the line on that was? 3 maybe?
Yeah.
And then they lose 38-7 or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, we're just telling you the lines because that's what the computers compute out. But no, you cannot bet on high school football.
Definitely not through us. Maybe somebody somewhere.
Yeah, maybe somewhere somebody can do it, but not through us. So getting back to our games right here. Galesville at Valley Head, look, it hadn't been a great year for Galesville. They'd be 0-8 without the forfeit from Coosa. They've been outscored 326-44 this year. Bottom line for Valley Head, just go take care of business. The biggest part of this year, or this time of year, Bo, for teams that are in the position that Valley Head is in, stay healthy, keep in rhythm. If you can get up on Galesville, you would love that. Get your starters out of the game. Let them kind of just play for a little bit, get their rhythm. This is the time of year, and this is the type of team that you want to get your other guys in the game and start getting them experience. And you want to keep those guys engaged too. People don't consider that, it's a grind. I mean, you get to this point of the year, and if you hadn't played a ton, you still need to be engaged because you're playing scout team or you're doing others. And so getting those type of guys in a game like this is very, very important. And I'm sure that, I don't want their coach to get all Coach Saban on me and tell me you think that we're. But what I'm saying is they're not a great team, and you ought to be able to get up on them and get those guys in. And it's important for coaches to think about keeping their guys engaged and keeping them wanting to be out there with them. So, Valley Head should be able to go take care of business on Friday night against Galesville and put themselves in a good position to really have a lot of momentum heading into the postseason this year. Big game right up here around this area. J.B. Pennington at Southeastern on Friday night. Now, the AHSAA has J.B. Pennington as a 20-point favorite in this game. But I'm telling you, this is a very good Southeastern team. They lost 13-6 to Raglan, who you were talking about earlier, who we've figured out now Raglan's really, really good. So that was a great game. And, it's first game of the year as well. Southeastern's gotten a lot better since that point. If they played again, they might come out on top in that game now. Since then, they beat Gaston, West End, Holly Pond, Cleveland. Their only other loss in the year is to Locust Fort, and then they beat Pleasant Valley last week, which was a huge win for them. So this is a very good Southeastern team, and it's a J.B. Pennington who has been very good also. Their only losses on the year is, to Locust Fort, and then also to Madison Academy, who is very, very good. So
you play Locust Fort and Madison Academy
back-to-back weeks. How about that? So this is going to be a very, very interesting game. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one goes on Friday night. It's a 20-point line, like I said, but I think that Southeastern's going to play J.B. Pennington really well. It's going to be a close football game.
The next one is the aforementioned Locust Fort. They're 9-0, 5-0 in region play, traveling over to Walnut Grove to play West End, who's 5-3, 3-2, having a pretty good year out there at West End. They're doing a phenomenal job out there at West End, and always good to see the Etowah County teams doing good. Mm-hmm. West End's having one of those years, quietly having a really good year, and has a pretty good football team, but they're going to have to play with their hair on fire against this Locust Fork team. I'll explain why in just 1 second. In every classification, in all divisions, in all regions, Locust Fork has the second highest scoring offense in the state. They're averaging 54.8 points a game, which is, I don't know how many points that is a minute. They're scoring. It's like dump truck loads full of points.
They've scored more points than minutes played in the season.
That's what I'm saying. That's incredible. Think about that. They've scored more points than minutes played this season. And they remind me a lot of that Cleveland team from a few years ago that made it all the way to the state championship that was scoring points at this level. Listen to this, Caleb. They've outscored their opponents 493 to 88 on the season. Point differential. They're scoring 54.8 points per game, and they're only giving up 9.7.
And that's gotten better as the weeks have gone on as well. Like the last couple of weeks, they're giving up single digits or zero.
So I didn't talk to Coach Sewell this week, but I can imagine his game plan is going to be run the clock, slow this thing down, get off the field somehow or another, and let's let their offense watch us play offense.
Yeah.
I did talk to Coach Matt Harris earlier, and I asked him about slowing them down, and he said, yeah, it's going to be a task. And I said, they remind me of Cleveland. He agreed with me. I didn't get to talk to Coach Matt Harris for a long time, but I did talk to him briefly on text. So very, very tough task right there for West End. But, man, I know them kids are going to play their guts out at home at West End. They always do. So be interested. Be a tricky little road trip for Locust Ford. They just ain't going to show up and win that game.
And are they feeling some pressure to go 10-0? You know, I'm sure the whole town of Locust Fork, you know, and the whole school all week, hey, we're getting a 10-0. You know, hey, y'all can go undefeated. So when that happens, some pressure starts to build up. Do they feel some pressure this week and have a West End team that could possibly sneak up on them? That'll be something to watch on Friday for sure.
Well, Coach Sewell, you're talking about a staple win, buddy.
Yeah.
If he could pull that one right there off. Because look, all the talk this last week's been on Fife and Pisgah, Fife and Pisgah, Fife and Pisgah. Perfect time to play these guys because, you know, all the talk, and they're probably like, hey, look at us. And they're just like, oh, you know, it's West End. But it'd be an awesome win for Coach Sewell and company. Next game, we're going to talk about North Sand Mountain and Collinsville. This game right here, Caleb, is a very interesting game from the standpoint of if you win, you play Southeastern, travel to Southeastern. If you lose, you're heading to Locust Fork.
Better win.
So, you know, and I talked to Ernie Willingham this week on his coach's show, and he and I talked about that scenario. And he's, you know, Coach Kirby actually called him right before we went on and was filming to Coach Kirby at North Sand. And they were just joking about the weather, and Coach was talking to them about guys and this, that, and the other. And they were the good relationship between those two guys. They're a familiar opponent with each other. Two really good football teams. Two teams that really need to win this game because nobody wants to go play Locust Fort at Locust Fort now. But the one thing I will say about North Sand and Collinsville, once you've had Pisgah and Fife on your roster, then you're not going to be scared to play anyway.
Yeah. I mean, everybody else is going to seem a little bit easier.
That's exactly right. So that one right there is going to be a really interesting game, and that's for 3 and 4 in that region.
No, yeah, it's a huge game. It's very. I mean, you said all you needed to say with, hey, the winner doesn't have to play Locust Fork and the loser does. I mean, you know, that says all you need to know. But, hey, we see every year a 4-seed upsetting a 1-seed, and if any region can do it, especially up here in the north, it's that region against that region. And as good as Locust Fork's been all year.
They're not going to be scared is the first thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, Dadeville at Randolph County, I'll have this game on Friday night. Huge game last year. It was for the region championship. Both teams were undefeated going into this game, and then Randolph County actually ended up going on a 3-game losing streak to end the year, losing this one, their Week 10 game, and then losing the first round of the playoffs. So they're hungry to get back at Dadeville, and it'll be really interesting. It's a Dadeville team that's starting to get better. They maybe had one of their best games of the year against Childersburg this past week as they really dominated Childersburg. I mean, it was 33-0 at halftime. It was 19-0 about 7 minutes into the game, and they played well, and they're starting to get their passing game going. They got Cam Hurd at quarterback, who's a very good athlete, very good baseball player, plays in the summer for us, and he's starting to kind of get confident and starting to get going, and they've got 3 running backs they can give the ball to at any moment that can do some damage, and they all do different things. Brandez Eason is speed, Jay Burns is power. I mean, he looks like he's not as big as Derrick Henry, but at the 3A level, he looks like Derrick Henry running through the hole, you know, and the third and fourth quarter probably feels like Derrick Henry running through the hole. So it'll be interesting because they get Randolph County at a pretty good time. They just played Walter Welborn 2 weeks ago. They struggled with Beulah this past week, who, you know, is very up and down, but Beulah was leading that game 29-28 before Randolph County went on a run to close it out. So, you know, same situation kind of as what you talked about earlier, but, you know, winner of this one will host in the first round. The loser will have to travel, and more than likely they'll travel to the loser of Mobile Christian and Thomasville. So either way, you're going to have your work cut out for you if you have to travel in the first round. You'd much rather be playing one of them other teams out of that region, especially getting to play them at home.
Neither one of those teams is right next door to you either.
Yeah, no, it's a long trip.
So it's going to be a travel.
Long trip. So, and we're going to talk about that Mobile Christian and Thomasville game later on here, but very important game for both sides here, and you know, for Randolph County and Coach Pat Prestridge, I'm sure they have a lot of revenge on their mind to get back at this Dadeville team, and so should be a really fun one there at Randolph County on Friday night.
Throw it over there. There you go. Let's see. You're actually going to lead off on this one, brother. No, wait, I'm going to get that one. Let me do that. You do that one.
All right. So Walter Welborn at Sachs. You know, look, it's been a rough year for Sachs. There's no other way to put it. I feel for Coach Freeney. He's got a young group. He's got a freshman playing quarterback who, if he wanted to, could probably go suit up and play linebacker for a lot of 7A programs around the state and have success. He's a big old dude, but he's learning, you know, and they're learning as a team. They're getting better. And you can kind of look at their results as the year has gone on. They've gotten better in games, and they haven't just been dominated, especially here towards the end of the season. But their biggest issue at Sacs this year is they can't play defense. They've given up over 30 points in every single game, and
That's tough.
it's hard to win when you're giving up over 30 and your offense is having to score. And they've gotten better and they've scored here late in the year. But if you're going to have a week where the defense finally shows up and plays well, this would be a perfect week to do so. You're going to get a Walter Welborn team who's probably going to walk into this game a little bit. You know, I'm sure they're not super focused on Sacs this week. They've already won the region. They know they're hosting in the first round. They're really getting a ton to play for this week. This is the perfect time for Coach Farini and his group to slip up and really give Walter Welborn a really good game Friday and start building some confidence into what Sacs can be next year. Because I'm just telling you, a lot of these young guys they have this year, they're going to be some good football players, and Sacs going to be back to winning some games. So
that's a rivalry
should be an
game.
Yeah, and it's a big rivalry game, and that's another thing. I think Sacs will be prepared for this game. And while it's a rivalry game for Welborn, they know they have other stuff in front of them. Sacs has nothing else in front of them besides winning this game. So a team like that has the athlete Sacs has could be very dangerous on Friday.
That'd be a good. That'd be a statement win if he could win that game coming up right here, especially for Sacs right there. That would be a huge win for Sacs. This next game is going to be Sylvania at Westbrook Christian. Sylvania is 7-1. They've handled business. They're going to be your region champs. They're 6-0 in region play. Westbrook Christian's 4-4, 2-4 in region play. Westbrook had a big win last week in a game. I mean, they had to win that game. I thought just from a program. I'm saying like program changing, but to maintain the vision that Steve Smith has there, they needed that one.
I agree.
And a lot of people don't know this. Coach Blanchard actually sat out last week. The first time in 20-something years he's missed a game, and prayers to him that he's back at practice and he's doing a lot better right now. So for him not to be there to coach last week and to get that victory at Plainview was a huge win for Steve Smith and his program at Westbrook. I actually talked to Coach Smith about 45 minutes ago on the phone. He's heading to be on FNN tonight to talk to Jim Jacobs and company. But for Tyler Van, what he wants to do in this kind of situation right here, he knows anytime Steve Smith is across the field from you, then he knows that that's a dangerous opponent, and he knows that you're going to have to coach and win. And Sylvania was in a dogfight last week, and they come back. They were down multiple scores to Oaks Bluff and come back and won
21-7 at one time.
At one point, yeah. And they come back and won that game 28-21, I do believe was the final score last week. But for Tyler Van at this point right now, it's handle business. He wants to get in here. If Tyler Van had his way in this game right here, he's going to go in and try to get on Westbrook early and try to get some guys some rest. And he's got some deep run visions in his near future where he's wanting to make a run at this thing down the stretch. And the way you do that is go in there in games like this and, flex your muscles from what you do, which is control both sides of the line of scrimmage, take care of the football, stay in front of the chains, and make the game a lot easier for your team, which is what he's done up into this season, everything up into that Pisgah game, which was a shocker to a lot of people. But been an interesting game. That line's 21. I can tell you right now, Steve Smith loves that. He's got that line circled. They're 3 touchdowns better than us at our place. He's got that circled. So I know that's an interesting point on that game. The next game is going to be Oaks Bluff, who's traveling to Piedmont. I can't tell you how big this game is.
Huge.
Oaks Bluff, believe it or not, looking at the tiebreakers, if Piedmont wins this game, there's a very, very good chance Oaks Bluff may be out of the playoffs.
Wow.
All right.
That's after having a great year.
Great year.
They've had a great year.
Great year. But if you look at it, I don't have it here in front of me, but if you pull it up, if Piedmont wins, it kicks a 3-way tie. I'll let you pull that up while I'm telling you about this. And then you go from your non-region opponents. You already know who your 1 and 2 seed in that region is. Mm-hmm. Right now, Oaks Bluff's a clear 3. If Oaks Bluff wins, they've captured the 3rd seed. If Oaks Bluff loses and it kicks to a 3-way tie, I think there's a chance that they may be out of the playoffs. I'll let you look that up. But Oaks Bluff's traveling to Piedmont in the Field of Champions, which is not an easy place to play.
Yeah, I believe you're right, because Oaks Bluff would then have the same record as Piedmont
and
AHSAA.
AHSAA, all right. AHSAA beat. AHSAA's going to get here's why they'll be out. AHSAA's going to win the tiebreaker. Okay? then it automatically kicks to head-to-head, which means Piedmont would have defeated Hoax Bluff.
Yeah.
So then Hoax Bluff would be out.
Wow.
Yep. So they're in a must-win situation for playoff.
Which is crazy to think about, and it's not
because you know
not the best team.
Ohatchee's got to win against Walter Wellborn this year.
Yeah.
And that right there alone is how many points?
Yeah, worth
6.
Yeah.
Right there.
Could be 7 after Friday.
After Friday, yeah. So, all right, speaking of Ohatchee, we're going to move on to that game now. Ohatchee's traveling up here to Plainview. Plainview's been in some dog fights and had a tough schedule down the stretch right here. Ohatchee's had some injuries, big-time injuries, which they got off to a great start. You know, Ohatchee beat Sachs 32-8, Walter Wellborn 26-7, Westbrook Christian 34-33. Then they lost to Sylvania, big-time loss, 64-34. Beat Piedmont, though, 38-21. Lost to Jacksonville, 51-6. Geraldine, 55-6. Hoax Bluff, 35-6. And beat Glencoe last week, 42-26. So it's been a season of ups and downs, and they've had some key injuries, as I said. Plainview, on the other hand, has lost some very close games, very, very close games as of late. They have got to win, too, though. Ohatchee has to win this game, or they're going to eliminate themselves from playoff contention.
Exactly.
So this is a must-win for Ohatchee.
Because Piedmont beat Ohatchee, correct?
Correct.
So even if Piedmont loses, if Ohatchee loses, Piedmont will get in over them.
Over them, correct. So they're in a must-win, and Hoax Bluff's in a must-win.
Yeah.
So Ohatchee is begging Piedmont to beat Oaks Bluff, and then they've got to beat
But you know what? If you're Piedmont, you're in a must-win, too, because you'd rather not count on somebody else taking care of business also.
That's how tight that region is, though.
No doubt. Man, we got some competitive regions to make this time of year very, very fun. Huge game for Susan Moore on Friday night. No other way to put it. It's one of the biggest games to me, and especially recent program history for them. And big opportunity. You know, you're getting a Madison Academy team who has been just completely dominant this year. They're 8-0, 5-0 in the region. They've outscored their opponents 428-73 this season. They're averaging 53.5 points per game. So another team that's averaging more points than minutes played this season.
Insane.
9.1 points per game defensively. So early in the year, they were getting scored on a little bit. They figured something out. Over the last couple of weeks, this is their scores: 63-7, 63-0, 49-6, and 74-0.
74-0.
They've given up a total of 13 points in the last 4 games. So 60 in the first, 4 before that.
Safe to say they're hitting their stride.
Yeah, and they're going to be a dangerous team in 3A for sure. So, big opportunity for Susan Moore. You get this one at home, and if you win, you're now right there tied with them in the region standings, which is crazy to think about. As they're sitting at 4-1. It's been a great year for Susan Moore. It's a huge game on Friday night. Big opportunity for them. Madison Academy is favored by 24 according to FHS, but for Susan Moore, this is you didn't play great against Locust Fort, which is one of the better teams that you've played this season. Didn't play great against Douglas, which is one of the better teams you've played in a higher classification. And you lost to J.B. Pennington and played them well last week, 28-7. Now's your chance. Go make a statement. Go show the state, hey, Susan Moore is a group to watch for when the postseason. And they're still going to be a group to watch for, but this right here would be a huge statement win over a very, very good Madison Academy team. Big game that's down around the Mobile area. T.R. Miller at St. Michael's. T.R. Miller 6-2, 5-1 in the region. St. Michael's 5-4, 4-2. If you don't know, St. Michael's head coach is Philip Rivers. Yes, the Philip Rivers that played quarterback for the San Diego Chargers and whatever they are now, the L.A. Chargers. They've done moved around. And, the Rams and the Chargers, I would hate to be in their situation. They have no home field advantage. Like other teams come in and take over.
Raiders too.
Yeah, the Raiders kind of in the same boat.
They move around so
kind
much.
of a crappy situation. They'd have been better off staying in San Diego. But anyways, look, Philip Rivers done a very, very good job here in his first year or second year. His son is a 9th grader now playing quarterback, and everybody's heard about Trent Seaborn and what he's done at Thompson. Well, there's people that think his son may be either as good or could be even better than him. And
he's on fire.
Yeah, and he's really, really good. So it's going to be a very big game. T.R. Miller just had a kid who's a junior commit to Alabama to play linebacker, but he's actually out for the year. He tore his ACL, so he won't have a factor in this game, won't have a factor for T.R. Miller. But it should be a fun game down there around the Mobile area. And, while it's not up here in our area, it's a fun game to bring up. And we want you guys to know about the big games going on in the state and not just up here, but all over the state of Alabama. And that's
on
a huge
Saturday
game.
mornings.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, and we'll be recapping that game on Saturday. So make sure to tune in to our Saturday show each and every Saturday at about 9:30. So we break down all these games.
The reason we do a lot of that, I want people to know when playoffs get here, they don't go, oh, what about this thing? Well, you've heard about them all year.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about
little tidbits here or there. So, yeah, that's why we bring up games like that, because people always ask, why don't y'all talk more about it? I'm like, okay, well, that's why. Okay. Next game's going to be Anniston at Cleveland County. Shout out to the Anniston Bulldogs last week for picking up win number 600 in their career. Anniston's been playing football for, I think it's 90-something years, and they got 600 wins last week.
That's top 15 in the AHSAA.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a shout out and a testament to their town and city. And, a lot of people don't know Anniston's had a pretty good football program for many, many years quietly. You don't see them mentioned as up in the ranks with some of these other teams, but they've quietly just took care of business.
There ain't very many years that goes by where there's not a Division I football signing out there.
And I'm talking about, like Power 5 guys, like very good guys. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes multiple. They got one signed to Auburn right now, and Jay Money's going to Auburn right now. Last year they had Cam, and Raquez is in Alabama, so and Spoody's in Alabama, so they got guys with recent guys that's playing big-time college football right now. So last year, this game is a bit of a rivalry. These two teams know each other very well. Cleveland County started the season 3-1, then lost 4 straight since to Reeltown, Jacksonville, White Plains, and Handley by a combined score 210-41.
And that Reeltown, Jacksonville, and Handley, I mean, that's tough to play those 3 in a 4-game stretch.
Who in the world wouldn't lose? I mean, think about that. Look at those teams right there. White Plains is down a little bit, but Handley, Jacksonville, and Reeltown, if any 3 of those made a deep run to the semis or state game, I wouldn't be surprised at that. So don't take nothing from those 4 losses, because this is still a pretty good football team, and Anniston's going to have to show up and win. Anniston's had a bit of ups and downs this year. They lost to Jacksonville 54-24. Then they beat Piedmont in a game you called 14-9. Then they lost to Handley 39-6, but then they turned around and beat Talladega 54-0. So they're 2-2 in their last 4. So that'll be an interesting game. I'm gonna let you break this next one down.
White Plains will be traveling to Jacksonville. For Jacksonville, it's kind of a rivalry game. They're right there beside each other.
Let me tell you something about White Plains. They had their playoff ban. What's it called?
Lifted.
Yeah. That was because they didn't want to travel to Anniston. They felt unsafe. It was the week of the shooting, but they had that changed. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I think from what I saw, they can't get in the playoffs now with the loss to Mumford because of tiebreaker scenarios. I might be off on that, but I thought I saw somebody put that, especially on their Saturday show.
I think it's true, yeah.
Yeah, so, it'll be interesting to see how they show up for this game because they played so hard against Mumford last week. You go to overtime. So if that is the case, which I think it is, you have that ripped from you after then, you had it ripped from you, you get it back, and then, you go and you have to play an overtime game. While it's still a rivalry game, you're playing a very good Jacksonville team who, really kind of one bad quarter away from being undefeated right now this season. So you got your work cut out for you on Friday night. For Jacksonville, go take care of business. Go keep playing the way that you've been able to play so far this year. Their only loss is 32-24 to Handley. Outside of that, they've outscored everybody 363-100.
It's crazy.
Over the other games and have played just fantastic. And they've really gotten it going on the defensive side of the ball as well. And you got a guy who's been there for a long time now, and Coach Clint Smith. I mean, it's his program right now at Jacksonville, and you're seeing the success of it. I mean, he's played for a state championship already, and look, I'm telling you, 4A South is so loaded in 4A South that anybody can make it. And so you go get the right matchups, you go play, you get hot at the right time, and you play well at the right time of the year. Anybody can make it out of 4A South, and Jacksonville has as good a shot as anybody to go play for a state championship again this season with Coach Smith.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. I'm pretty sure he's from the Danny Horn tree as well. Clint Smith is. So he's doing a fantastic job there at Jacksonville. Next game is going to be Handley, who's 8-1, 5-0 in region play this year, traveling to Mumford, who is 2-6, 2-3, and you just mentioned Mumford last week. Here's the thing about Mumford. Mumford's wins are over Talladega and White Plains, who are combined 2-14, albeit themselves. This season, they've been outscored 299-188. Hanley's a 21-point favorite in this. This is a business trip for Hanley. Just putting it out there. This is one of those games where they want to show up, they want to flex their muscle and dominance early, get some guys in, and they want to roll on to the next one. Mumford, you know, if you want to make a statement, you want to turn some heads, and you got your chance to do it at home this Friday night, but it's going to be very, very, very tough versus Coach Strain and Hanley, because Hanley is another, guess what, 4A South team that could win the state championship. We're going to talk about two of them, which is our game of the week this week in just a little while. We just mentioned Jacksonville, and there's several others down there.
I mean, you got Jackson, you got Bibb County as well, who played Andalusia fairly decent also. So, I mean, it's loaded.
All right, the next game is going to be Cherokee County. It's traveling to Asheville. Here's the deal on this game. I was sitting in Coach Kelly's office today, and Coach Kelly said, what you're supposed to say as a coach, it's his job to get his guys up no matter who they play. He said they do have a running back that had several big plays against Aniana, so he does have these guys scouted out really well and circled. But Caleb, at the end of the day, we're looking at a 57-point line in this game because Asheville's 0-8, Cherokee County's 8-0. It's a tale of two different directions right now, albeit Asheville has a new head coach, and they're going to turn this thing around. There's going to have to be a lot of work done between now and now to do it, and they're super young. Now, they do got some guys there. They got to keep them in place. Asheville's been outscored on the season, 337 to 147. When you flip that thing around and you look at Cherokee County versus their opponents, they've outscored their opponents 353 to 52. Cherokee County's averaging 44.1 points per game while only giving up 6.5. Their closest game was to Aniana and the 4A defending back of the year last year, Fluff Bothell, and they beat them 49 to 21. So Aniana,
I think that's their closest game.
That's their closest game, and it's also the only game they've given up 10 points.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's the only game they've given up
and
double
took a
digits.
guy who's going to play Division I football to be able to do it. You know, I mean, it's
who the week after or 2 weeks after had one of the best high school football games in the history of high school.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, speaking of Aniana and Fluff Bothwell, they will be hosting Good Hope on Friday night. You know, look, it's an important game for Good Hope. They got to keep their playoff hopes alive by getting a win here, but they're going to have their work cut out for them with this Aniana team. Their only loss in region play is to Cherokee County, and outside of that, they have played extremely well in this region so far. They beat Hanceville 43-24. Fultondale is a very improved Fultondale team this year, 37-28. Springville, who is also much improved, 28-21. You talked about it, you know, Fluff Bothwell just dominated against Etowah on a night where Etowah actually played pretty good. I mean, scoring 36 points, and they played good that night, and yet he just took over the ball game. I mean, 17 tackles, interception,
it's like a kickoff return.
300 and something rushing yard, 200 and something rushing yard. I mean,
he had 100 yards receiving, touchdown, and I can't.
I mean, it almost looked like it was 1 versus 11.
Yeah, it's some kind of play. I mean, it's like PlayStation type numbers.
But you know, you look at
Phillies win.
Can't even tell, yeah.
Well, sorry guys.
I hope not.
I hope so, but go ahead.
Yeah, I hope not. Big game though between Aniana and Good Hope, and like I said, I mean, Good Hope has to get a win here, but they're going to have their work cut out for Aniana. And I think you look at this Aniana team; they're starting to play their best football at the right time. They're on a 4-game winning streak since that Cherokee County loss. You know, dominated Asheville. I think the biggest concern, if you're a fan of Aniana, is the fact that gave up 28 Fultondale, gave up 21 to Springwood, gave up 36 to Etowah, 39 to Asheville last week. With playoffs coming around, you know as well as I do, it's about to get colder, better be able to play some defense. And so they've got to get a lot better on the defense side of the football if they want to be able to make some noise in the postseason this year. But they got a weapon at running back that, you know, also could play big time there in the postseason as well. Another game that's not really around our region, but is a huge game down around Mobile, UMS Wright at Faith Academy on Friday night. Faith is a 2-point favorite in this game, so it's very tight. Look, it's not your typical Terry Curtis UMS team. You know, it's not the teams that we saw go and compete for state championships year after year after year, but there's one thing that you know, his group's going to show up well coached and prepared. And, you know, you're going to get a Faith Academy team that was very good last season, you know, knocked Coach Horn and Central Clay out of the playoffs last year in a very tight one. They lost a lot from that group, but they're starting to get going, I think, here at the right time. They beat a very good Citronelle team last week, you know, 24-0. Faith beat Williamson last week, 29-0. They beat Viger straight up. So, you know, Viger had to forfeit games to other people. They didn't have to forfeit to Faith Academy because Faith just beat them straight up, 21-13. That's a team Corey's been really bragging about with how good Viger is this year. You know, it's been an up and down year for both these teams. It's been the inconsistency, I think, that's hurt both of them. But it's a huge game down in that area. The winner of this one will host, and the loser has to travel, and that's always a big game, and it's always important. So
the Danny Horn fans out there is wanting Terry Curtis to keep losing.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
He's already tied him for the state championships. Now they're wanting to get that overall record.
Winona at John Carroll. This is a big game around the Birmingham region on Friday night as well. I mean, you look at it for Winona, it's been a weird year for them. You know, they competed decently with a couple of teams, but I mean, I watched them against Ramsey, and they got up 7-0, and Ramsey beat them 65-7 after that. And then they lost to Fairfield last week, which was a shocker to me. Wasn't expecting that, and so I don't know where this Winona team really is right now. And they played Pleasant Grove really well. You know, that they beat Sylacauga, beat Midfield, and you're like, okay, maybe Winona's back to being pretty good. And then they played Pleasant Grove really well and beat Carver Birmingham and Jasper, and you kind of said, okay, Winona's good. Well, then the Ramsey game happened. They lost to Fairfield last week. Well, now you get a very good John Carroll team who, you know, while they lost to Pleasant Grove and Ramsey, they competed very well. That's a game, you know, that 28-0 against Ramsey. Yeah, they didn't score and all that. This is a game a couple years ago, and you know, Will Maher, their head coach, told him, and they'd have lost 70-7 or something like that, you know, with the backup scoring on the 8th graders for Ramsey. I mean, so they've come a long way, and would be a huge win here for John Carroll. You know, they're pretty much locked up in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they'll be traveling just because they got Pleasant Grove and Ramsey in the same region as them. And if this region stays intact, I'm telling you that it's going to be Winona's going to be good again next year. Fairfield's going to be a lot improved because they were super young. Jasper was extremely young. They're going to be better. And then you got those three as well. So if that region ends up staying together, it'll be super competitive next season. But a huge game, and one for Winona, it's pretty much must win for them. If they win it, they get in as the 3 seed. And then if they lose, there's a chance they don't even get into the playoffs. So it's almost must win for Winona. John Carroll's pretty much in the playoffs because they hold the tiebreaker over everybody else. But Winona would then jump up to the 3 seed with the win because they'd hold the tiebreaker over John Carroll. And so it's a huge game for Winona. And it'd be good to see them back to being in the postseason, back to being able to compete again and finishing 7-3 this year.
One of the biggest upsets I've ever seen in high school football was John Carroll beat Etowah in 94, I believe, 93. Etowah's only given up 7 points a game that year, and they got upset at home by John Carroll. Had an ambidextrous quarterback. I can't remember his name, but when he rolled right, he'd throw right. When he rolled left, he'd throw left. And they upset Etowah that year. It was unbelievable.
I don't know if you saw, did you see Tennessee's kicker this past weekend against Bama? Kicked right-footed and then kicked left-footed going the other way. How crazy is that?
An Australian as well?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, everybody's.
They said that 12. They said 12 of the 14 punters in the SEC were Australian. From Australia. Bryce Hopper. There we go.
Yeah, 1-1, top of the third.
There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, next one. Let's talk about Leeds traveling to Lincoln. You know, Leeds coming off a big win and a rivalry win versus Moody, because if you look at what Jake Gaines has done, he's changed the mindset, he's changed everything at Moody in a very short period of time. But here's the deal about that game. They are now 0-2 versus Leeds. Coach Jerry Hood wins games the old-fashioned way, running the football, staying in front of the chains, and playing very good defense. You know, that was a tough loss to them earlier this year when they lost to Southside, which is pretty much set Southside up. I think by even point tiebreakers, I think Southside's going to finish the 1 seed. I'm almost positive. I could be wrong. We can look at it a little bit deeper, but I'm almost, if you don't mind, pull that region up. I think even off tiebreaker, Southside may finish 1, even if they do lose to Moody. I'm not positive, but I'll look at it and see. But in Leeds' case, you know, you're traveling to Lincoln. Here's the deal about Lincoln. Lincoln started this season off 3-1.
Moody will be out because they're Pell City and Sylacauga are 2 of their non-region opponents.
And the team out of state, you get 0 points.
Yeah.
So they have no points.
So they have no points.
Southside has beat.
And then Leeds lost to Mortimer Jordan. Southside's only loss would be to Guntersville, which is the best loss out of all of them.
And then Hoax Bluff's got, I know, at least 5 wins. So there's 5 points. So Southside's pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, Leeds was Mortimer Jordan, Pell City, and then Center Point. Center Point could help Leeds out a little bit.
Yeah, now Center Point's got 7.
But they would have to beat Center Point.
They'll have to beat Center Point, yeah. So Southside,
And I don't know if that'll happen. I think
it's going to be tough with George Bates there. Yeah. But yeah, so it's very Center Point. But who's Southside's other non-region? See who Southside's other non-region is while we look at this. But
Etowah.
Okay, Etowah's got
3.
3. So
Could
5
get
plus
to
3.
4 this week.
Are Hoax Bluff? Yeah. Hoax Bluff's 5 wins, or are they 7 wins? Just look what how many wins Hoax Bluff got.
We had it on. Where's that sheet?
It's right over here.
No, we
Let's
had
see
it
real
over
quick.
there.
Let's look at this real quick while we got everybody live waiting on us. I bet people screaming at their thing. Hurry up, you idiots. Yeah, they got 5. So they got 5, and Etowah's got 3. So
It's hard to keep up with all this information.
It is hard to keep up with it. So it's going to be tight, but if Southside wins, they win it outright, so it don't matter. So, but anyways, get back to this game. Lincoln started the season off 3-1, and then finished 1-3 since then, and their only win been over Mumford. They lost 18-11 to St. Clair County last week. Big win for them.
Yeah.
But more importantly, Jerry Hood, for 2 years in a row, 2 consecutive years in a row, is going to own 4-11 in a big, big rivalry. That rivalry has jumped off the page of recently.
Yeah, it has.
And now Rush Probst is wanting to get in on the 4-11 train. He's going to try to make some noise in that area over there. So if these 3 teams continue to play, look out in the near future. Next game is going to be the Boaz Pirates. It's traveling to Douglas. Boaz 3-5, 1-3 in region play. Douglas is 2-5, 0-4 in region play. Boaz is a 3-point favorite in this game. This is a rivalry. This is a big-time rivalry game. Douglas started the season out 2-0, lost 5 straight by a combined 188-103. They've been banged up. We talked to them. We had those guys in, was it 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago. And, they've had some injuries this year. Coach Lyles does a really good job out there. They got to stay hungry. They got to stay focused in this game because this is a rivalry game. This is one that means a lot to communities. These 2 communities are so close together. These kids know each other. Some of them's related. Some of them go to church together, and fans of both teams shop together. So you're going to see these people all throughout the year. Boaz just coming off a massive, massive win last week versus Sardis.
Yeah.
And look on paper and in the computer, everybody thought Sardis was the favorite in that game. But Coach Sullivan and company said, well, you may be the favorite, but watch this.
Yeah.
And at one point, that game was tied 21-21. And then Boaz just kind of, I don't know what it is when they play Sardis. They just, I don't know if they expect to win. Something happens just mentally. They get up for Sardis and they just flex their muscles, so to speak. And I mean, they come and once it was 21-21, they went on a 14-0 run and just won that game going away. So big, big win for Coach Sullivan and company last week in a rivalry game. Next game is going to be Gunnersville, and they are traveling to Sardis, who we just mentioned. Now, Sardis is much improved this year. We just talked to Lee Osment, who was head coach for B.J. Brooks, who's now coaching at Sardis. And, Coach Osment said it best. He said B.J.'s doing a fantastic job with his kids out there. Sardis had some guys this year, and BJ's using those guys, and they're doing a really good job with those guys. Gunnersville's going to be an angry bunch of Gunnersville Wildcats coming off that loss to ARAB last week in a stunner. They lost 29-19 to ARAB in a game the Gunnersville kids really wanted and Coach Reese really wanted. If you rewind the clock, this time last week, Caleb was talking to Gunnersville right here in this very restaurant, and they were ranked 6th in the state, undefeated. And it looked like they were going to run away with the region, and nobody going to touch them. Well, guess what? Now they're staring down the barrel of traveling in the first round. Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible to think about it in those terms, but they're staring down the barrel of traveling because if Scottsboro kick off the points and they kick a 3-way tie there, then these guys will, off the points alone, is going to Scottsboro finish 1, and then it kicks the head-to-head, so ARAB has the head-to-head versus them.
And if Sardis were to win this week and Douglas beat Boaz, Sardis would get in the playoffs over Boaz at that point.
That's incredible, ain't it?
So
this is a must-win for B.J. Brooks and company.
A must-win all the way around. I mean, it's a must-win for Gunnersville, too.
Gunnersville, too.
Because you got to keep yourself in a good spot. Michael Watto requested this game. We actually didn't have it down, Michael, so I appreciate you bringing it up. We just kind of overlooked it. And, look, we only got a certain amount of games we can try to fit into this time slot as well. Anyways, we try to do about 30, 32 games, and then plus our 5 that we do for the game of the week every single week. But St. Clair County does deserve some love. They've played extremely well over the last couple of weeks. They've gotten something going up there. You know, big win over Alexandria, and while Alexandria hadn't had a great season, you got to get teams when they're down. And when you've been struggling to get wins the way St. Clair County has, that's a huge win there. You then don't play well against Moody, but then you turn right back around and get a big win over Lincoln to now set you up with a winner gets in and loser goes home game against Springville, who has also had a pretty good year this year. The record doesn't necessarily show it, but Springville's much improved, had a good year. I mean, a great win to start the year over Etowah. And so, huge game between Springville and St. Clair County. And, you know, I got a kid that plays for St. Clair County, Parker Blankenship, plays baseball for me in the summer and has done a really good job with that group there, playing and executing and finding ways to win. It's a group that didn't win very many games last year. Now they're at 3 and a chance to get to 4 if they beat Springville, and they not only get to 4 but get in the postseason as well. So appreciate you mentioning that, Michael. And yeah, huge game there for St. Clair County against Springville, and should be a very fun one. Another one that's down around the Mobile area, Theodore at Saraland. You know, Saraland apparently is under investigation right now with the AHSAA, and some stuff's going to come out Friday about them and Gulf Shores, so we're going to kind of know where both those two teams stand. But that's something that I was told today by some people that have some good knowledge on everything that's going on. And apparently Saraland right now is also being looked at along with Gulf Shores. And Ryan Morton asked what St. Clair's record is. They're 3-5 overall. They're 2-3 in the region. And that's exactly what Springville is. Springville's also 3-5. They're 2-3 in the region. And so the winner of that game will have a better record, go on to the playoffs. So, but interesting. It's going to be interesting to follow Saraland, because if they end up, something happens and they don't get in the postseason, you have a new favorite in the South, and it'll be Hillcrest Tuscaloosa at that point. So,
and a new favorite overall is going to be Clay Chalkville.
Yeah, man.
With a firm hold.
Yeah, and I would argue that they could even still be the favorite overall. So,
got to tackle Mr. Williams.
You look at Theodore; they've had a pretty good year. They're 6-2. They're 5-1 in the region. Their only region loss is an 8-3 loss to Spanish Fort, who's also really good. But the thing is, Saraland, they dismantled Spanish Fort, 49-0. It was the most dominant win they've had in that rivalry. They beat a very good Lipscomb, Tennessee team, 31-30 in overtime to start the year, and hadn't had any close games really since. And another one that stands out is 70-20 over Foley. You know, Perry Thompson, and they got a running back there who's about 260 pounds who other teams have played on and been like, we don't want to play that guy again. You know,
without all that, we won't.
It's a very impressive group from Saraland, and it's going to take a lot of work for Theodore, but it'd be a huge win for Theodore if they did get a win here, and it could shake things up down there as well, because all of a sudden you'd have a 3-way tie at the top of that region.
Could you imagine?
So what if Saraland's traveling in the first round? Imagine being the 2 seed. You're like, hey, man, we get to host. And then who are we hosting? Saraland.
Here comes Ryan Williams and company.
So it could really shake things up. If Theodore loses, they end up being the 3 seed, which, again, who wants to match up with Theodore as well? Because
a good football team.
Struggle to score some points. I mean, they held Opelika to 10 down there in a non-region game as well. So very big football game down around Mobile. And, again, we look forward to talking about that Saturday morning. You guys can hear more about all these games Saturday morning as we do our Saturday morning recap show on Facebook and YouTube each and every Saturday at about 9:30. Big game around Montgomery. This is a region championship game. Carver-Montgomery at Pike Road. You know, Carver-Montgomery lost to Gadsden City 37-20 to start the year, and from that point on, they've played some really good football. They beat a very good 7A Daphne team 12-7. They've really dominated their. I don't know how they lost Percy Julian, which used to be Robert E. Lee, but you know, they lost that game. Otherwise, they'd be a 1-loss team. But they've dominated their region.
What a big
beat Cedar Grove, Georgia, as well, who is always really good, and that was a huge win for Carver-Montgomery. They've challenged themselves, and they've really gotten going over the last couple of weeks. You know, they beat Cedar Grove after the loss to Percy Julian, beat a good Wetumpka team 38-7.